think you can go ahead and kickstart the class.
Fantastic. Hey everyone. My name is Eugene, front-end engineer. I've been that for the last 2 or 3 years. Today we're going to get into some exciting stuff. I'm going to give you a brief introduction into the VueJs framework. And then we're going to jump into some coding. We're going to make a small application just to reinforce what we learned. So without further ado, just give me a second to share my screen. Just a second as I open. Oh, it seems I don't have permission for this. I might need assistance from.
Okay, sorry about that, Eugene. Okay, go ahead and try sharing your screen now.
Let me try. Fantastic. Okay, there we go. Give me a second. Give me a permissions issue on my laptop. So I have to quickly change that. Okay, let me try one more time. Fantastic. There we go. Are you able to see my screen now?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Fantastic. Okay. Yeah. So. So I hope CSS and JavaScript, it will make what I'm saying a bit easier for you to test.
Hello, Eugene. Hello, Eugene. Can you still hear me? Okay. Hello, Eugene. Can you hear me?
Sorry. I don't know what's happening.
Oh,
yeah, I can hear you. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened there. I just lost you guys. Sorry about that. So yeah, like I was saying, I hope you've done a bit of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. That's what we're kind of going to build over today. And I'm going to show you an easier way to develop websites using Vue. So this is exactly what I'm going to take you through. Basically, an introduction or overview. Then I'm going to show you the anatomy of a VueJs app. These are basically what you will find in your typical day-to-day VueJs app. After that, we'll look at adding functionality to components, and then we'll put it all together for a demo. And then after that, I can take questions. although you're free to ask questions at any one point. If I'm lost, don't feel scared to drop a chat, and I'll get to that after I finish presenting. Yeah, so we can start. So what is Vue? Vue, in short, is a JavaScript framework for building user interfaces. It provides a declarative and component-based programming model that helps you efficiently develop user interfaces, may it be simple or complex. So in a nutshell, VueJs is a JavaScript framework, and a framework basically gives us a structure, sometimes with inbuilt plugins that help us build scalable apps. All this while abstracting complexities of the underlying language. So there's a lot of, if you've done a website with just HTML, CSS, and vanilla JavaScript, there's a lot of complexity that you need to account for to get a site from the time you build it to the time it's up and running. So this would just make that entire journey easier for you. So we'll move on to the anatomy of a VueJS app. So this is basically what you would find in a typical VueJS app. It's basically made up of 3 components. I mean, there's more to this, but I think because this is an introduction, this is the 3 things that you'll spend your most time concentrating on. One is
I think our instructor is having a bit of network issues. He just left. Let's hope by the time he comes back, it's much better. So guys, let's give him a minute or two to join back. Hello, welcome back.
sorry, guys. Can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you.
My bad. That was our power. Yeah, that was just our power coming back. So just
Okay, so I think Eugene is having a bit of an issue. He should be back any minute.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, I can hear you now.
Okay, that's good. I've just switched back to my Wi-Fi, so.
All right.
Yeah, so where was I? Yes. So I'll talk about components, and they're basically made up of 3 sections. One is called the template section, where we're going to put all of our HTML, if you call it. The script section, this will carry our business logic, they'll carry like our data, our variables, methods. and the style section. This usually holds all of the CSS and styling of the page. Yeah. The second component that's there usually in Vue apps is the router. And then this usually helps us to define the URLs or the links we use to access different parts of our app. So I'll just show you a quick snippet of all of this. So just don't take it in too much at this point. The last one is the VueJs store. And VueJs is a state management pattern and library for Vue applications, and it serves as a centralized store for all components in the application, with rules ensuring that the state can only be mutated in a predictable function. So think of this as just a... Hello?
Okay, we can't see your screen.
My bad. Okay.
All right.
Got to share it.
Okay.
Can you see it now?
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
Okay. And I'll be sharing I'll be sharing a link to the presentation after. So if you miss anything over here, don't worry, I got you. Yeah, so those are basically the three things. I don't want us to concentrate too much into theory because personally for me, I don't think this is the best way to learn. I think the best way to learn is practically. So let's move on. So this is an example of your Vue router file. So like I said earlier, this is where you define like your URLs. So you can see in this example, they've imported the Vue package, the router from the Vue router package, and they've connected the Vue instance to the router. And then down here, we have the defined routes for this particular application. So you can see that for this application, when it hits the base URL, it accesses a component called home. Yeah, which is also imported there. For the second one, you can see that when you hit the base URL and slash about, you access the about component. It's written a bit different here. The component is written a bit different. The syntax is a bit different. We usually call this lazy loading, but I won't concentrate too much on that in this first class. Either one is fine though. Yeah, so we'll move on to components. So components are a really big part of Vue. You can't have a Vue application without components. These are essentially like the building blocks to every Vue application. This is from everything you see on the UI to how your data is processed, to how your UI looks as well. Everything is contained in a component. So the typical structure of a Vue project would be probably be the root component, and then inside the root component we have we split it into a main one, and I don't know if you guys can see the diagram here, but just think of this as any HTML page. think of this as any HTML page, and you can see we have a header over here. So this is probably where your links would be. And then your main is probably where your text, for example, your videos, your images would be. And then there's a side over here. This would probably contain a side menu, perhaps. It all depends on it all depends up to you, depending on how you want to style your page. But this is essentially the structure. So that was how a component looks when it's rendered. This is the typical structure of a component file. So, like we said earlier, it's divided into 3 parts. So this first one has template tags. And what we do in these template tags is we write HTML. Sometimes we display data. But I'll show you guys how to do all of this. The next tag is our script tag. This is where I say most of your business logic will go. So, sorry, data would go over here. So you're seeing, for example, a data property called heading, and it's being rendered over here. Usually when you're taking stuff from data, and you're rendering it between template tags, you use the double curly braces. Last is the style. I won't focus on this too much. This is essentially where you write your CSS. The syntax for this doesn't change from the conventional CSS. So how do we add functionality to these components? Yeah, like I said, sorry. Between the script tags, we define our business logic. So in our script tags, we'll find like data, and maybe if you have functions that you want to use, maybe to compute something or stuff like that, all of these things will fit under data. They'll fit under methods. For example, that's where your functions go. Data is obviously where we store the data values. I forgot to mention another called props, but we'll touch this in the practical. Props are essentially a way from us for us to pass data from parent components to child components. Yeah. So now the good part. I hope we're all ready to code. So what we're going to create is a simple URL shortener to basically show the functionality of what we've gone through. And to do this, I'm going to use the VueCLI tool. And what the VueCLI tool does essentially is it helps us scaffold a small Vue app without worrying about too many things. It takes care of a lot of things in the background, but I'll explain most of these as we proceed. So prerequisites at this point, you need Node.js installed on your computer, because to install the VueCLI, we're going to need Node. We're going to need the VueCLI as well. And lastly, you're going to probably need an IDE for this. I just think it's generally easier using an IDE. So I don't know if there are any questions until that point before we start coding.
Hello guys, are there any questions? If you have your questions, kindly drop them in the chat that Eugene can answer them before he moves on to coding. So give you like 1 minute. If there are no questions within the next 1 minute, Eugene, you can go ahead and continue.
Okay, fantastic.
So roughly time starts now, guys. Any questions? Okay. I think there are no questions. You can go ahead.
No questions. This, you guys are really sharp. Okay, so let's jump into. So I'm just going to use a basic CLI. You can use a terminal. On Windows, it's called CMD. Just for that, this is just a basic terminal. So I will start with installing just Vue CLI tools because I already have Node installed. And if you have to check if you have Node installed, you can just type Node, double hyphen, and then version. So yeah, we can say I have Node installed. So let's just, I've forgotten the command to install the CLI tools. I already have it installed, but just for the sake of those who don't, yeah, so don't worry, I'm going to include all of these links as well. So don't worry about cramming anything. So this is a command for installing the Vue CLI tools. We'll just copy that. Go back into our terminal and paste it if we don't have. The second step is we're going to run this command. So after we install the Vue CLI tools, it will help us to run commands natively using this Vue keyword. So right now we're going to do Vue create and then the name of our project. So Vue create, should we call it top universe? Okay. So we'll give it a second. It's going to ask us to pick a preset. So what it's basically asking us is, okay, I'm going to make for you this Vue app, but with this Vue app, what do you need out of the box from me? So I'll just pick the default. I'll pick Vue 2, Babel, and ESLint. I'll explain what these two are. I can actually explain them right now. So Babel is a package that helps us convert our code to be readable by older browsers or browsers that basically have an older version of JavaScript. So it will sort of like take all our code and convert it into a readable version. The second one is ESLint. ESLint helps us with our syntax to basically find and fix problems. This makes our code more consistent, and it also helps us avoid bugs. So you can just read separately on Babel and ESLint, but they're actually quite important when you're doing these things, and you don't have too much of a headache. So we'll just install that. It takes a while. Those aren't the only two things it pulls. It also has to pull packages that Vue itself just needs to function. So that's what it's doing right now. I hope my internet will not let me down. It usually does not take a long time though. In the meantime, if there are any other questions, you can drop them in the chat.
Okay, I think there's one question in the chat.
Fantastic.
They say, why not VIT instead of CLI?
Why not Vita instead of CLI? Wow, that's an interesting question, Jun. So it's just about personal preference. It's just about our personal preference. But that's interesting. John, have you interacted with Vue before? It seems like you've interacted with Vue.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
thank you.
Sorry.
I say, can you zoom in on your screen a bit?
Oh, not sure how to do that. But at this point, it's literally just running commands to install.
Oh, okay. All right. No problem.
Yeah. 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 So does that. It looks like it's done. You can tell by the beautiful colors on my screen. It's made my screen look like, in the movies, they portray hacking as. Yeah. So the goodness with running this CLI tool, it shows us the commands that we need to immediately run the app locally. So this first one, what it does, this is just a basic terminal command that allows you to enter that particular directory or rather folder that was created. So we can see here, Utasap top universe, you can see. If we do ls, it will show us the contents of that folder. So we can see a readme file has been created, a Babel file has been created, a node modules file has been created, package lock.json file has been created, package.json, public folder, an SRC folder, which will be working auto. Yeah. So I have a shortcut on my machine to open my IDE, which I'm going to use right now. So the command is code dot. Fantastic. So here's my IDE. Just minimize this. You can all see it. And we have all of the folders open there. Okay, so this public folder usually just contains all of the build files after Vue does its thing and compiles. The SRC folder is what we're going to work on. This assets folder comes generated when you download this, when you use a CLI, it usually has stuff, just static assets. So maybe if you have videos, photos, this is a good place to put all of that stuff. Again, this is just for a very simple app. For more complex apps, people would rather store these things on server. But yeah, we have a components folder which has a sample components that will be seen in a bit. You'll notice Vue files come with this .vue extension. If I open it, it's going to have everything essentially we saw. So you can see the HTML in between the template tags. You can see the stuff about this is the component name, sorry. This actually matters if you use Vue DevTools, which is something you're probably going to be using to debug your sites, like on the breakdown, and props, which we skipped over, but I'll mention a bit later. Yeah, but that's script, and we have style over here, which just has the basic CSS that this page needs. App is another component, so it basically has all the same thing. So every time you open a Vue app and you see a .vue, just know that that's a component file. This main.js is our entry point. Called the entry point is the first file that's opened the application, and then what essentially does is it initializes like the Vue instance. But usually, if you want some stuff to run right before the app runs, this would be a good place to put it. So I saw in your syllabus, you guys might have done Firebase by now. So this is where you would initialize your Firebase instance. All of those good things. Gitignore is just normal Git file.
Hi, Adrian.
Hi.
Okay, can you zoom in a bit? We're having the student say that you should please zoom in on your screen.
Okay, let me access my accessibility.
Okay, thank you.
Let me help you with that. Okay. That's letting me down. Just give me a second. Okay. Is that better? Is that better?
We can't see your VS Code yet.
Okay. Here's my VS Code. Is that better?
I think you still have to zoom in a bit. It's not so clear.
Okay. How about now?
Okay. This looks still not so clear.
Still not so clear.
Yes.
Well,
maybe you have to make it like a speaker.
Let me see if I can make my But if we can't do this, I'm also going to drop a repo. So you can be able to see. Yeah. I guess we're going to have to make do with this. Is that okay? For now. yeah, so that's basically all of the files
Okay,
that
so sorry, Eugene, sorry to interrupt you. So
okay.
so you can go on the view, click on the wait, we have under view, click on appearance, then use the zoom command on your VS Code.
Okay. Under view,
Yes, click under appearance,
appearance.
then use the zoom command there.
Ah, fantastic. Okay.
Okay, you can see. Oh, okay, perfect. This is perfect.
That's perfect. Fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you guys for helping me with that. You learn something new every day. Okay. So now that we can see, so we have most of our stuff installed, but I just want to do one more. First, I'll open a terminal here. There we go. So right now, what I want to do is I told you guys about Prettier, the code formatter. So I basically want to install that to help with the syntax of the code and ESLint as well. So to do that, I had the npm package over here. So don't worry, I'll add this link as well. So documentation is here. So just copy this entire command and installation, install it. Give it a second as I play with my new favorite feature. I've actually never used this thing. Quite interesting. So, as you can see, it's installed 5 packages at the same time. And then we'll need to add this particular config file for it to be picked up. So we'll just copy that file quickly. Add a new file, yeah. If anyone is coding along with me, don't shy to stop me. At one point, if you don't understand something that I'm doing, something you need immediate clarity on. Okay. And as soon as we do that, we'll already see problems over here. So this is actually a show file where you can tell that prettier and easily working. So it's just formats this. It's telling me to put this is something I missed. This is something I missed. Because when you build up for production, you usually don't have time to look at the small things. So that's one of the amazing things about Pretty and ESLint. So now we'll move on to destructuring well, more problems. I think we should just fix all of the problems first. So okay, problems. So by default, I think it's set to detect problems both in the JS files and the VueJs files. So now that we've corrected our problems, I want us to first run the app to just look how it looks in its current stage. So if you run, that's the command that we run. This is happening. So error in majors. Error in majors. Oh, interesting. Okay, so I'm just going to run this again, confirm whether it's an actual issue. Yeah, it's an actual issue. So give me a second, guys. We have to troubleshoot this. But yeah, so you can tell coding now. What's complaining about? This looks like it's something to do. An issue that's occurring during competition. Yeah, 15 minutes. I think you can just skip over that. I'm going to cheat a bit here. So already have a working file. Just copy stuff out of, if you guys don't mind. Oh. Completely refused to work. Just looking at the time, I think we'd rather just build on, let's just build on what I have and ignore that. This kind of stuff happens. The problem is we don't have time to debug right now. So I'll just get this one to run. And might have actually been the issue. I think it might have been a port issue because this was already open. My apologies for not checking that. But yeah, essentially what we're going to do right now very quickly is to create a component. So like I said earlier, app is this is usually the first component that's opened, and you'd after you design your components, you'd essentially have them running within app. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We can see in this particular case, it was you have to import it and then define it here under an object called components. And then that's when you can use it on your code. So I'm just going to drag all of this stuff out because we're not cheaters. So we'll call it URL short and review. Yeah, so I'm going to show you a very neat trick. Sometimes you don't need to, because sometimes you don't have enough time to type template script style. So shortcut here you can use, just write VBase and you press enter. Immediately you do that, it will generate a quick scaffold with the template script element and the style element, everything that we need to now start creating our app. I know it seems like a lazy approach, but trust me when I say the lazy programmer is the best kind of programmer, because you always find the easiest solutions to your problems. So we'll just quickly call this shortener. Actually, before we do that, you can go back to the app to just make sure that there's nothing. So we can see it's only the Vue logo that's rendered. And we can see it under defined under here. So that's all well and good. Shortener. So usually when you're importing components, most people just love it's a common convention to name your components with starting with an uppercase letter first. So I'll choose it components and then shortener.vue. Then down here, remember this is the name of the component, and then you need a components object. Components, just like that. And then we put it. That's it. You can already see Yeslint already complaining that we've imported the components that we're not using. That's about to change soon because we'll add it. And when we're adding components within the template, we just add them as the same way we add with a self-closing tag and the that's way better, way better. So under here, we're just going to do a quick span. We'll just insert URL here. We'll have a small export. And then we need one that actually displays the result. Yeah. So let's do quickly. We have insert URL here, the text box. Just give me a second, it seems to be the old one. So we can see over here, I forgot to import the correct component, sorry. Shorten out. There we go. Yeah, so we can see the insert URL here, text, the text box. We need to add a button. So we'll add that right here. And convert URL. Fantastic. We're just going to leave the styling as is for now. As we add data. So I don't know if you guys remember, but I talked about this data object, and this is essentially where you drag your data items, mostly stuff you want to render. So we're just going to, we need the results, we know that. Then we're just going to leave that blank. So you define this as a normal, you write this as a normal object. So we're going to put the result here. And remember I said, when you define something in data and you want to access it from the template, use double curly braces. So now we have a result there. We actually need the input. So we'll say URL, call the input URL. So when we're taking input in, as opposed to displaying it, there's a different approach that we use. We, in this case, want to we want the input elements to capture that particular text. So we write vModel and we point it to URL. So it'll know anything that is input into this element will show up here. Yeah, so it's good you have those two. We need something to happen when we click the button. So Vue has a way of calling or capturing the click event of a button. And usually with Vue, most events within template tags, if you want to capture them, you start with an @ sign, then the name of the event. So we type @click, and then at click, we want it to call a function that converts the URL. So we'll call that convert URL. So that's that. But now we need an actual method to called convert URL that will be fired after that button is clicked. So we'll define all of our methods and this object called methods. So over here we'll just have convert URL, the function, and we'll just quickly console log whatever we've captured in the URL to just make sure that it's working for now. So to access data properties that have been defined here in methods, or rather anything that's under here, we type this dot the name of the property. So if we quickly go back to our app and we pull up our console, if we type test, there we have it. What's this spelling? Right, there we go. So up until this point, we've defined data properties to point what's being captured here, the results, and we've added a function and pointed it to here. So I just quickly want us to make us I want, when we click this function, for the results to show up somewhere here. So we'll just say this result. Remember the result is being displayed up here. So this result is going to be equal to this URL. So we just want anything. Fantastic. So you can see that that works. So I'm just going to quickly define a class over here just for better readability. This is just regular CSS. Define a class. To add a class, just like regular HTML, use that. Block. We won't focus too much on our styling because time isn't on our side. Okay, I guess that will work now. No. That's okay, that's fine. Yeah, so now we actually want to make sure that when you click on convert URL, it actually converts it to a valid shortened link. For that, I'm going to quickly use this service called TLY. So what we're going to do is we're just going to make a small API call, give it the URL that we want to convert, and it will send us back the shortened URL. So don't worry, this service is free if any of you are interested in using it. So I'll just delete this previous API key. The token name top US. So it's just generated an API key that will need to call this API. You can actually just save that here. It's token, so that we don't forget it. But you really don't have to be doing stuff like this. A production of this should be hidden in probably an environment as an environment variable, an env file. So let's quickly close that and go to the API docs to just quickly look at the implementation. Yeah, so it basically explains what it is. It's basically shortened links. We're interested in the JavaScript, so we'll go to the JavaScript. This is what we want now, because this will be able to, with this small snippet here, we'll be able to make a HTTP call, pass it our token as a parameter, as well as these two headers and body with a link, and as a response we'll get the short URL. So I hope you guys learned how to make requests with the fetch API. That's basically what's being used right now for this. So I'm just going to take everything and copy paste that and put it over here. You can already see a bunch of issues from Prettier telling us this isn't how you write code. So yeah, we fix all of that. Still complaining. I guess it's because of these escape characters. That's what it's saying. Still just remove this. Beautiful. It's working now. So we'll just quickly edit out what we don't need from here with what we need to replace it with. So for the API token, we had already taken that. That would be this token value over here. And remember, to access it, we'll write this dot token. For the long URL, since this is the body, this is what we're giving to it. That would be this URL, because remember. Actually, I don't name it this. It might conflict with this, so we're just going to quickly rename this to long URL. And I'm going to have to change that up here. Let's input. So it's pointing to the correct variable and that. Yeah, so you can see it calls the fetch method, it passes the URL, which is defined here. The headers, the body, and it returns response.json. So we can call this const res. We just want to store this response in a variable over that. Just make everything a bit more readable for ourselves. Then we'll go back to the documentation, and I see for the short URL, they usually pass this. So this entire object will be returned to us when we make the call. We're only interested in this. Now we can use a shortcut. This was introduced in ES6. It's called destructuring. So what this basically does is we say from this entire object, I only want this. I only want this value. It also works for arrays, but it's a bit different. So back to this, only want that. And after you get it, we also want to declare that as the result. So we have to point to the result. So for that, we type this result, and then we assign it a short URL. There we go. So now we should have a working app. We'll just give it a try. So HTTPS. Actually don't have to write this, I think so. Yeah, we'll understand that. So let's write cnn.com. See what shows us. So you can see that something is going wrong. And if we open our console, we can actually see the request was sent for one reason or another. We haven't displayed the result. So we're just going to have to go back, have a look at our code. And troubleshoot a bit. So what we can do is actually print out what's here at this short URL. Let's do that. but it's saying short URL is undefined. Interesting. That means this isn't really working as we expected. So let's try and capture what the entire response is first. I'm going to comment this out for now. So guys, these things always happen. When you develop it, usually it's the smallest things. The thing is to not let them get you ahead. So let's give it another try. Okay, that's the problem. So we're getting a promise. We forgot to wait for it. So we essentially forgot to wait for the promise to be fulfilled. So this is exactly what it was returning before. But now that we know that's the issue, we can revert back to our previous code. We call this should work now. Clean that up. Convert. There we go. So it's given us a link over here. Kind of doesn't look that user friendly. So what we're going to do is we're going to make it a quick link. So to write small link element over here. The name will have to come here, but remember, because the name is a variable, the double curly braces have to apply, and then we're going to also bind it to the address here. So we want, when you click the text, it points you to that particular URL. So to bind anything in Vue to a native HTML attribute, we use the color symbol. Okay, let's just fix that. Make this a bit readable. LCD. But yeah, that looks kind of good. Okay, it looks okay. So we can already see it's already changed this into a link, and that's also another feature about Vue and just how we're running this app. So it has this feature called hot reload that automatically like loads changes to the page, so that you don't need to keep on refreshing the entire page every single time you make changes. So if we click on this app, it should take us to CNN. And there we go. So I think for this, to give our users a better experience, it's better to always open it in a new tab. So go back one more time and try that. www.cnn.com. So yeah, that's basically it. You can see by now how Vue has been a big help together with some of the plugins that we installed. We've literally created this in like 20 minutes. This would have been way longer if we used vanilla JavaScript. And that's just some of the benefits that you get out of using a framework. So I'll be posting a link to the fully completed app, as well as most of the packages that I used. Yeah, so that's basically it. I'm so sorry I've taken 12 minutes of your time. But yeah, are there any questions? So, okay, I can see Newman asking over here, how do I get the snippet plate shortcut in VS Code? It's an extension. I use it almost daily. It's called Vue Snippets, I think. Vue Snippets. Yeah, so I think any one of these should work for you. It's just Vue Snippets. Yeah, so what I used. Do we need the curly braces in calling? No, we actually don't. If we're not passing any parameters, we don't. So this is just a mistake for me. I don't know. But you don't need to. I mean, you can remove the curly braces and it would still work the same. It shouldn't affect anything. You see, still worked. So no, we don't need that. Can all what was done in the CLI be done in VS Code terminal? Yeah, because it's essentially the same thing. It's essentially the same thing. I just wanted us to start from the CLI, but you can typically open up your VS Code, you open the new terminal, and everything. Yeah, I hope answered your questions. I hope I've answered all of your questions.
Okay. Hello guys. Thank you, Eugene. So hello guys. If you have any more questions, please go ahead and ask before so that Eugene can round up. If you have any questions for him so far from code he has written up to this extent? So if you understand, please go ahead to drop I understand in the chat. If not, ask your questions. So let's give 2 minutes for that to happen.
Yeah, please don't fear to ask any questions.
Don't be shy, ask your questions.
Glance from the code again. There we go. So this is basically it. And we can see also the power of the framework itself has allowed us to do this in what, 59 lines of code. That's amazing to me. Still baffles me to this day. If we're using vanilla JavaScript, we'd have to point at elements, and yeah, it should be a headache creating even a small app like this. So I have a link to the full project. It's on my GitLab. Feel free to just even go to my GitLab and look at other projects. Or I hosted it as well. So you can see a live version added to the README. That's why we can see it here. So yeah. This is my LinkedIn. in case you have any questions about the React or Firebase or Vue, Node, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to answer you all.
Okay, so all right, I'll go ahead to drop your LinkedIn link here on the chat. So guys, you can follow Eugene and feel free to ask him any question.
Oh, Lopez asks if I can copy paste the link to the repo here.
Okay.
Okay, let me just post it. But I think I'll also should share with you the document. So the document on Google, so that you can also share it to them.
Okay, all right, I'll do that.
Yeah, but yeah, you guys have been amazing. At least I've learned something today, today as well. Yeah, man, it's been nice.
All right, so thank you so much, Eugene, for coming on this class, for making our time to come on this class to teach. We so much appreciate your presence.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So since there are no more questions, I think it's safe to call it a night. Thank you so much. So guys, do well to follow him and ask him your questions on LinkedIn. He will respond to your questions. So thank you once again, Eugene, for coming on this call.
No worries. All of you guys have a good one and happy coding.
Yes, thank you so much. So I think it's good afternoon, good night, good morning, whatever your time is.
Yeah, all of them.
Yeah. All right, guys. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
All right.